person who founded Mother's Day, her name is Anna Jarvis. Somebody's agreeing with me. Anna Jarvis was part of a Methodist church right here in Philadelphia. The name of the church was called Old St. George's, and she had created this tradition to honor her own mother and care for her. So celebration of Mother's Day is part of our United Methodist tradition as well. And the reason this day was started was to share a mother's story with those who are around us. So this morning, I want to invite Michelle Hall, who is our children's ministry director here at Mount Hope Church, and she does an absolute amazing, wonderful job caring for this ministry. There are so many of us who are blessed by it. She knows how to care for the children who walk through the doors of this church and for various community events, and also care for the parents. So will you give a round of applause as we welcome Michelle Hall this morning.
Come on, heel. Okay, good boy. To the step. Yes, good boy. Forward. Right. Good boy. Come on. Come on. Sit. Down. Up. Thank you. Okay. Oh, got it. Thank you. Okay, good morning. Happy Mother's Day. Okay, my name is Michelle Hall, and I am a mom of 2 kids. I have Emma, who's 10, and Nathan, who's 6. God has laid it on my heart for quite some time now to share my story, so it is my prayer that this is his message shared through me this morning. I consider myself extremely blessed to have grown up in Mount Hope Church and known Christ from a young age. Immediately from birth, I was exposed to the power of prayer, the amazing and continuous support of family and friends, and God's healing. I was born with multiple heart defects and have been followed closely by cardiology my entire life. Prior to my first major surgery, at just 6 weeks old, my parents were sure to have me baptized, actually right here where I'm standing now. That first surgery was followed by a number of various childhood hospitalizations, and I always knew that there was a mountain of people behind me rallying not only in support, but through exceedingly kind gestures, such as I had people who learned CPR so they could care for me as a child. I had people who traveled to Boston Children's Hospital so they could donate blood. I had family and friends who decorated the front yard when I got home from major surgeries, and I even saw a childhood friend just pop in who I know made me a video at one point when I had a surgery. And I think for a long time, I just always thought that alone was my story, that my cardiac history was my testimony. But little did I know, our faith and our testimonies can continue to expand. And while that's a huge part of the foundation of my faith, and surely part of why I'm standing here now, I also believe that it was a seed God planted in my life to prepare me for challenges that he knew were coming my way as an adult. So we're gonna flash forward now to the year 2008. I was 21 years old, and I was in my last year at Millersville University getting ready to student teach. It was at this time that I began experiencing out of the blue eyesight symptoms. I can't quite pinpoint like an exact day or time, but initially I started to notice what I can only describe as a pulsating flash in the upper right corner of my visual field that never went away. It's still there to this day. Additionally, I was extremely sensitive to light. My color vision was distorted, and of course, things were blurrier than they should be. I saw doctor after doctor, went for test after test, and really there were no answers. Eventually, a top ophthalmologist at Wills Eye in Philadelphia pretty much leveled with me. He told me that he knew something was going on in my retina. He knew it was extremely rare. He had never seen anyone like it before. But he could assure me it wouldn't worsen over time. So even though he couldn't fix it, the good news was that it wouldn't worsen. So my life pretty much went on. I got a job that I absolutely loved, teaching math at Ridley Middle School. I was involved here at church in various things. I was involved in Bible studies. I money counted at one point. I served on the conference mission team. Nick did as well. I think I served for about 7 years. And things were good. I had this little bit of low vision, but I pretty much learned to tune it out, and life went on. And honestly, we were super blessed. It was right around the time that Nick and I were thinking of starting a family. This is about 5 years from initial symptom onset, that I started to notice changes. I was working at Ridley Middle School at the time, and sun glare was becoming such a concern for me that I actually started altering my driving route to and from work to avoid it. There was a day when I was driving home from work that I hit an unexpected detour. As I turned, the sun was shining smack in my face, exactly what I had been working every day to avoid. The next thing I knew, I heard pedestrians yelling. I rolled down my window to see what the commotion was, and they let me know that the commotion was me. I was driving the wrong way down a one-way street. I hadn't seen the sign. Terrified, I was lost, and I actually asked those same pedestrians for help, and they directed me to a gas station where I was picked up by my dad and my brother, and they came and drove my car home. And if you know our family, in true form for our family, we all joked about it. But the reality is, I was hiding the depths of what was happening with this vision loss from everyone, including them. And in public, I was struggling too. I remember a day being in Aston Giant and someone just started screaming at me, and I didn't understand why. And here I was in the 10 items or less line with a full cart of groceries, and I didn't know the sign was there because I couldn't read it. There was another day I was at the beach, and I remember a custodian started screaming at me in a public restroom. Apparently, I was using a stall she had just cleaned, and can't you read the sign? Actually, no, I couldn't read the sign. And that was just kind of like what became everyday life for me. At this time, I never lost my faith completely, but I began becoming really frustrated with it. And I opened my Bible one night, intentionally seeking comfort, and I stumbled upon Philippians chapter 4, verse 6. Do not be anxious about anything. I'd love to say that I read this verse and I was like, oh yeah, God's got me. But instead, I was actually infuriated. I felt like I had opened my Bible seeking his comfort, which I knew he promised. I grew up in the church. I knew he promised that. But instead, I felt like he was giving me another problem. I felt like he was telling me it wasn't okay that I was anxious about what was going on. And I continued to be angry at him, and I continued to let God know it. All my life, I felt like I had strived to be a good Christian, strived to do the right things, and I did not understand why he was letting things get so difficult for me. Because I was so angry at God, I tried to take things into my own hands, and I tried to take control over the whole situation. I knew that the high school age group wasn't my strength, but I applied for a job teaching at Sun Valley solely because I thought the shorter commute made sense. When I was driving in to the final round interview, it was a super bright day, and I drove so carefully, and I remember praying over how amazing the shorter commute would be. By this point, I was regularly wearing sunglasses to overcome glare, but as I walked into the building, into the interview, I figured it was unprofessional to wear the sunglasses in, so I took them off. Seconds later, I fell flat on my face onto concrete. My teaching portfolio spilled everywhere. Horns from Concord Road were honking, like they were literally making fun of me. I collected myself, and I realized I had fallen over a tree stump. That was the first of falls for me. I just hadn't seen it. Blood was dripping down my leg. I had black pants on like this, So fortunately, I was able to cover it up, and I sat the whole interview with my legs crossed at just the right angle that the superintendent wouldn't see the blood. And somehow, through it all, God's grace, I landed the job. I started that new job at Sun Valley, and other big life things were happening too. After extended testing, my cardiologist cleared me as healthy enough to pursue pregnancy. This was a major blessing and something we hadn't always known would be possible. And soon, we were pregnant with Emma. I imagine that's the picture. But while this was so amazing, we were so excited, I had what I kind of consider my final battle with sun glare. I was driving to work one morning at what was supposed to be my nice, easy, short commute, and I rear-ended a stopped car at a traffic light that I just didn't see in front of me. It was 100% my fault, and I made a decision from that point on to stop driving. I was becoming aware that even though doctors didn't think so, things were definitely worsening with my eyesight. But I kept most of the thoughts to myself because honestly, how do you tell family and friends you think you're going blind? Emma was born in 2014, and I was a mom. And while, of course, it was so exciting and we were so blessed, I began questioning God's plans and his purpose for me even more. I was a first-time mom while simultaneously adjusting to no longer driving, and I was quickly realizing that without transportation, little things become big things. If Emma needed to go to the doctor, how would I get her there? If I ran out of diapers, formula, let alone something I might need for myself, I didn't know how I would get it. Additionally, being a mom presented new visually impaired challenges I wasn't prepared for. I remember going to give Emma a bath and realizing I couldn't see the water level height, so I carefully felt for how high the water was in the tub and then just carefully bathed her. I filled bottles by ear. I memorized her favorite books. I used diaper cream with every change because I wasn't sure if there was a rash. As all this was going on and I was constantly adapting, lingering in the back of my mind was this nagging question: was I going to go back to work after maternity leave? I truly felt that God had given me the gift of teaching, and I felt it couldn't be part of his plan for me to ignore that. But if I went back to work, it just felt like there were so many logistics that I couldn't figure out. I waited until the last day that I had to decide, and I cried as I checked the box on the letter to the district. No, I would not be returning. I covered up my grief by telling everyone that I was so blessed to be a stay-at-home mom, and really I was, and I knew that, but it doesn't mean it also didn't hurt. I continued to ask for prayer. I continued to pray and ask for clarity, for direction, for purpose. And I just felt like the more that I prayed and the longer it went on, where was God? He wasn't making this any better for me. Eventually, I went for newer and updated testing. I actually canceled the appointment twice because I didn't want to burden others with having to help me out so I could get to my appointment. But ultimately, my mom ended up taking off work to watch Emma, and my Uncle Joe, who was here at the earlier service, agreed to drive me into the city and take me for the testing. It was there that day that I heard confirmation for the first time that whatever was going on with my sight, it was progressing, and it was likely going to continue to worsen. I covered up my grief, I played it cool, but once I got home, I just tried to take control even more. I wanted to try every treatment, every test. I wanted to research everything. I figured surely I was smart enough, I don't know why I thought this, and I could research and figure it out, and I could diagnose myself, and I could find a cure, and everything would be fine. But the reality of the situation hit me as I was scouring my patient portal looking for clues and insights, and I read something about myself that I hadn't known. I was actually legally blind. Eventually, my doctors determined it was worth a try to put me on a strong immune-compromising drug. The biggest catch to it was I had to agree to try it for 2 years, and at that time, I had to agree not to try to get pregnant. This meant Emma would be well over 3 before we could even try to get pregnant again from a sight perspective, and then I would still have to talk to my cardiologists about that too. But this was a pretty much last-ditch effort, and we decided to give it a try. And interestingly, during the 2 years on that medication trial, God met me right where I was at in my faith. Every morning, we would start the morning with little toddler Emma coloring at the kitchen table, and one day, as she was doing that, I heard Mercy Me's song, Even If, for the first time. And when I heard that song, I sincerely felt like it was written for me. I know it wasn't, but I'm still convinced it was. The lyrics of that song completely summarized how I felt about my faith. And I remember I just fell to my knees because I knew that God was speaking to me through that song, and I knew he wanted me to listen to it. The key lyrics that really stuck out to me were, I know the sorrow, I know the hurt, would all go away if you just say the word, but even if you don't, my hope is you alone. And as I heard that song, I made it a daily routine. Every day, Nick didn't know, he left for work. I'd sit Emma at the table, and I would just listen to that song on repeat, and I would let it sink in. And gradually, and I want to emphasize that, it was not overnight. Gradually, as I continued to listen to that and to really hear the message that God was giving me, I began to relinquish control. I began to relinquish anger. I began to relinquish everything that I was struggling with regarding my sight loss. Excuse me, I lost my place for 1 second. So, as I was doing this, and as I was realizing that I could put my trust in God alone, and I wasn't doing it alone, I started to realize that my prayers were being answered in life-changing ways. I was a first-time mom dealing with all this. I was so tired. And I remember just praying for some energy. And even though I hadn't specifically let on to closest family members and friends just how difficult things had become, God made it clear to me that they knew. My parents and Nick's parents and sisters started taking care of Emma more frequently. They started running me for errands. They started making meals. And just like God had answered with family support through my cardiac needs, he showed me again how he was going to provide that support with my sight loss needs. I prayed for the need to get resources. I knew resources existed, but it's not like you wake up one day and someone tells you how to find them. God answered with the most amazing doctor who was actually right in Springfield. She is a low vision doctor, and she began working with me. And after an appointment, my parents gifted me a magnifier, and I started reading paper documents again. I distinctly remember one day, Emma colored a picture. I waited till nobody was around. I slid the picture under the magnifier, and I could actually see it. And I was just so excited. I, at this point, needed to really get out of the house some more. I had kind of isolated myself in, and I knew that Emma should go to preschool. I wanted her to go to preschool, but I didn't know how we were going to work out getting her there. God answered once again through my Uncle Randy. He started taking both Emma and I to and from preschool right here at Mount Hope each day. Not only would he do that, but he would take me out for breakfast. We would visit family members. I was getting out of the house again, and it was such a blessing to just feel like a person again. God answered prayers that I didn't even ask for or know I needed. Jen Vickers, she was here at the earlier service. She became my friend at just the right time. We were introduced to each other, and we were going to lead Vacation Bible School together. And I remember sitting and saying, I'm happy to do this, but I don't drive. I don't know how I'm getting to any of these things. And Jen, who I had just met, started picking not only me up, but she was willing to load little Emma and her car seat in her car too, and we even put Emma down for naps by the noise of the fans in the church kitchen. And that act of Christian love and friendship from someone who I had just met changed so much for me. Not only was I feeling fulfilled again, God was using me again. And I felt like, in hindsight now, I feel like he was planting another seed for the journey that he was preparing me to go on. So you see, God wasn't necessarily answering my prayers in the way that I had hoped and expected. I'm not standing up here cured by any means. But he for sure was answering them, and it was all according to his timing and not mine. And by the time the 2 years on the trial had ended on those medications, my faith was so strong. It was so much stronger than I could even imagine or had ever felt in my life. And with that strengthened faith, I had comfort in knowing that Nick and I were going to go to both of my doctors to seek approval for a second pregnancy. First, we went to the ophthalmologist. We sat down with him, and though he didn't see signs that the medications fixed anything, he thought there was a possibility they were actually slowing the disease progression. This was a huge win. I'm still on that medication to this day. He gave us approval to move forward with a second pregnancy. That same afternoon, we went to my cardiologist. He had told me over the phone that there should be no issues, but he wanted to do his due diligence and bring me in for testing. I went in and had an echocardiogram done, and I'll never forget, the doctor walked in and he just said, I'm sorry. He said, your heart is working way harder than I thought it was. I cannot give you approval for a pregnancy. He told me I needed a valve replacement. Nick and I walked out of that appointment speechless, which if you know Nick, that's nothing new. But for me, I was just processing. And really, though it hurt, yes, I was upset, it didn't bring me down as hard as you thought or you would think, because my faith was strong at this point. It really was. And I was now trusting God wholeheartedly with whatever timing, whatever plan he had planned for us. And a few weeks later, after being lifted in prayer here at Mount Hope one night by both Pastor Tom Hawk and the Kelly Girls Bible Studies, I went and had that valve replaced. And within a year, Nathan was born and our family was complete. So, sorry, I need a minute here. So, my journey into motherhood was challenging. It was unique. I definitely think it's a unique story. But looking back, I'm grateful for it. All of those things, the good and the bad, they brought me to this stronger faith that allowed me to live my life in a completely different way. And from the time that I started hearing that song all the way through, I genuinely found peace and was trusting God wholeheartedly with whatever he had planned. Speaking of peace, remember that Bible verse that I was so mad at God about? Here's the rest of the verse had I continued reading that night. Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 and 7 this time. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, make your requests known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Peace that surpasses all understanding. That's the part of the verse I had missed. And now I can honestly say it took over a decade into my sight loss journey. I've found that unexplainable peace. And it's an amazing gift. Christ's peace gives me clarity, calmness, grace, trust. It's given me compassion and empathy. And my personal favorite, it's given me a very unique sense of humor. Christ's peace lets me laugh at myself when I do so many things. In particular, I laugh at myself because, yes, I have poured lemonade into my kids' cereal bowls. Yes, I have gone to department stores and politely said hello to mannequins on more than one occasion. Yes, there are things that happen, but I now have peace and humor in all of it. Sometimes I wear 2 different shoes. Sometimes I mix my kids' underwear up in the laundry bins. One time I fell in the pool on our family vacation. And sometimes in my home, I yell someone's name and they just start laughing because they're literally sitting in the room right next to me. I feel Christ's peace in all of that. I feel Christ's peace in the kindness of family, friends, and even strangers that he places along my path. My kids, they never hesitate to help me out. They'll warn me of steps and curbs. They'll walk me around poles. Emma gets really good at guiding me if there's shopping involved. And Nathan gets really good at guiding me if there's a sports field or a snack bar involved. And my family and friends, a lot of you who I know are here today, the amount of transportation, rides, support, it's unfathomable. And I think for some people it just feels like something small, but to me it is amazing how I get wherever I need to go all the time. There's hardly ever a time where I can't figure out who's taking me somewhere. God's got it figured out. I just have to trust it. My mom, she even eventually retired and became my main source of transportation. We called her the Grammy taxi when she took the kids to school. I feel Christ's peace as I continue to relearn how to do so many things in new ways. My personal favorite was the day I figured out how to use what we call tactile bump dots in the visually impaired world, and my assistive technology to read a book to Nathan's class. I was the guest reader. I feel Christ's peace as my kids' sporting events. I'm not gonna lie, I once grieved hard the loss of not being able to physically see them play. But it never fails that somebody sits next to me and begins commentating when they do something exciting in a game. I'm right there experiencing it with them. It's just different than how everybody else is experiencing it. And I've felt Christ's peace walk with me on so many new adventures in this journey. He's walked beside me each step of the way. I learned orientation and mobility training, which is essentially the tools you need to use a white cane. I learned so many assistive technology resources. I learned the basics of Braille. Sorry, I knew that would happen at some point. I learned to cross intersections by ear, and ultimately, I left my family for 2 weeks to attend guide dog school and learn to relinquish control to him and let him show me some things, which has made things so much easier. Christ's peace provides. It heals, it redeems, it works all things together for good. And with his peace has come the biggest moment of trust in him for me thus far. Trusting him when I could not shake the persistent calling I felt to pursue the children's ministry position here at Mount Hope. When Pastor Johnson first asked if I could potentially be able to assist in this role, I actually said no. Who says no to a pastor? But at the time, first of all, he didn't know the depths of what was going on because I was pretty much hiding it, but I could hardly even send an email, and I made it pretty clear there was no way I was comfortable ever being in any type of classroom again. But God had other plans, and he was relentless in his pursuit. And gradually, he started showing me how he would equip me. Coincidentally, at the same time frame that Pastor had asked, my low vision doctor and my assistive tech teacher sat me down, and they wanted me to imagine what my life would be like if I regained all the skills necessary to re-enter the workforce. And they challenged me to find a job opening, write a resume, and apply. When I tell you, if that wasn't a message from God, I don't know what is. I knew he was speaking to me that I needed to put in for that role. And like I said, he was relentless, and I eventually found myself in the role.
Power helps us be bold. Trust Jesus! Christian, you can be bold. Power helps us.
So, children's ministry was never part of my plan. But God knew all along that it was part of his. And he took every broken piece of this journey and fit it together to bring me to this role that just so happened to be open when I just so happened was encouraged to look. And now I'm back to teaching in a classroom again. Just this time, it's a Sunday school classroom. And I'm back to working with the age group I'm most comfortable with. Sorry. Just now it's not in a school, it's in our church. His timing is always perfect, and his peace has brought me clarity that right now he's got me exactly where he wants me to be. And he showed me that our trials and tribulations, they can actually turn out to be our greatest blessings, even when we don't feel that in the moment. Doctors still don't know if my sight loss will ever fully stabilize, if I'll experience some dramatic shift at some point, or if it will just gradually decline to total darkness. But God knows, and I find peace in that too. I believe in Jesus Christ because there's absolutely no other explanation for the peace that I now have over this entire journey. It wasn't that long ago that I was a first-time mom, adjusting to not having a driver's license, adjusting to sight loss, giving up my career. And now, I'm a whole different person because of his promised peace. He never promised us that things would be easy, and he never promised us that things would go according to our plan. But he has promised us that he'll never leave us or forsake us. He's our comforter, he's our refuge, he's our strength. He's planning to give us hope. He's planning to give us a future. In Romans 8:28, the Apostle Paul tells us, all things work together for the good, for those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. We are all called according to his purpose, and he's working all things behind the scenes in all of our lives to get us there. He took my greatest challenge, my biggest source of pain, and he wove all of that together for his good. If he can do that for me, I can only imagine what plans he's got unfolding in each one of our lives. Sorry, lost my place again. None of us can physically see the path he's laid out for us, not me nor you. But we can all choose to take a leap of faith and seek it. I'm blessed to have Christ's peace washing over me each day. And I know he's got the same blessings planned for each one of you. Happy Mother's Day.